All right, welcome back to the Onebar and Lupagus show. I'm Onebar with Lupagus. We got Kevin from the Falcoholic in the house. Our go-to for anything Atlanta Falcons. They kill it over there. Links will be down in the description. Kevin, what's shaking, man? How's life?
Oh, not too much. There's a winter storm coming because I live in New York at this moment. So there's a winter storm coming. The Falcons have once again fallen to 500. This is all very familiar to Falcons fans over over the previous 3 seasons with Arthur Smith. So it's starting to feel frighteningly familiar entering this part of the season. So hopefully they'll be able to do something a little different this time around.
Well, it's very familiar territory, not only Kirk Cousins, but we're also getting pounded by a winter storm right now. So we have a nice shared moment right now. I'm glad we shared that. Let's do it. Kirk Cousins, it's going to be a talker during the show. There's no doubt. He's had a rough go at it lately, and I've watched your show, and you guys don't seem overly pleased with him either. Is there any chance this dude gets benched this year?
I think it depends probably almost entirely on the Vikings game, which unfortunately, I'm sure you guys know the Vikings defense better than I do. I don't think this is likely to be a good game for Kirk Cousins, even if he was playing better. Like, this is one of the games you circle for a guy like Cousins, who we know, I'm sure you guys know, but even after the Achilles, like, having trouble moving around, there's limits to what you can ask him to do. In the past, I think he's been better against the blitz, but this year, really struggling. This is not a good matchup for him. So I think this is a really important game for him rest of season, because if he has another game like he did against the Chargers, I don't really think there's any way you can convince yourself to keep going down that path unless you're just willing to punt the division away. But again, veteran making a ton of money. He's had 2 4-touchdown games as well this year. Now, both of those were against the Bucs with a zombie defense, but it was impressive still. He set the Falcons, single game passing record and all this stuff. So, like, he has had some good moments. Don't want to forget about those times, but 3-game losing streak at this stage, no touchdowns in that streak, and now leading the league in interceptions. We're running out of time to salvage the season if you keep going down this path.
Well, let's continue on this a little bit here. So looking at it now, knowing what you know now, I mean, and the fact you guys drafted Michael Penix, the cost of this contract, was signing Kirk Cousins a mistake in your opinion?
It's probably still too early to have a definitive answer. I always thought doing both of them was dumb, and like trying to thread this needle that's very hard to thread where you have a successful veteran. The idea, obviously, was the Falcons signed Cousins to be a bridge for Michael Penix for 2 years. Based on the contract, that's what they wanted, was to have Cousins here for 2 years, then hand off to Michael Penix. Assuming also that you're making the playoffs during this window, you could tolerate that. They wanted to take a more leveled approach to putting a rookie on the field. They didn't want to depend on Penix coming in and having to start immediately. It hasn't always gone well for guys. I get that angle. It's just, this is probably the most expensive and difficult way to do this. And, obviously the Falcons have the NFL's worst pass rush, although they did get 5 sacks last week, which was like a full 50% of their previous total. So, we could have really used a pass rusher. They could have used another offensive tackle for the future as well, particularly if you're, Caleb McGarry, I think, has had a good year at right tackle, but that pass protection at that spot with Penix obviously being left-handed is a much bigger deal than it's been in years past. So I think it's still too early to tell, but obviously, given the last 3 games, it's starting to look more and more like it will go down like a pretty big mistake, unless something drastic happens here pretty quick.
Just quick follow-up on that. Like, what's the pulse of Falcons fans? Are they like, put Penix in, put him in now? Are they going that drastic? I mean, when Kirk Cousins was even here, dude has a bad game. It's bench Kirk Cousins. What's the pulse?
I would say up until this week, it's been pretty much like, let's give Kirk some time. They're gonna be, skids during the season. It happens to everyone. This game, coming off the bye, I think to me was the turning point, because this is when he should be looking his healthiest. He's had 13 weeks, 12 weeks to get accustomed to the new offense. There's no injuries according to him, which, I mean, I guess he could be lying, but I don't know why you would lie to get yourself off the hook. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I think I think that's one of Kirk Cousins' best qualities, is that he does tell the truth. And, the physical, the physical decline, I think, was somewhat expected, right? When a guy's coming off an Achilles injury like that and entering age 36, 37 season. That's when Matt Ryan had a similar decline, although it wasn't anywhere near this sharp that we're starting to see from Cousins. But the belief was, even if the arm falls off a little bit and he can't really move, you have a good offensive line. You can overcome that to some extent. You're expecting him to read the field and make the right decision with the football. That's something he's typically been pretty good at during his career. But now you're having the physical decline and also having the mental errors and really not reading the field. I believe I saw a stat yesterday that Kirk is like second in the league at first read targets. He's not really going through the progressions, and it's causing a lot of missed opportunities, but now it's starting to literally lose you games when you get the turnover stacking up to this degree, which, it's unplayable. You can't move. You don't have the arm strength to deliver even a simple out route on time, and you're making terrible decisions with the football. That's an unplayable quarterback, and I certainly hope this is just an aberration game, but we're 3 games in a row now where it's been going downhill, and sometimes these quarterbacks, when you get to this age, some guys can keep going, some guys can't, and this is about that age where you see who's going to go and who's going to have to stop.
We'll stop. We'll move on from the Kirk Cousins topic for now.
Do a whole show on it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. To see him with that many interceptions is absolutely insane. When he was in Minnesota, it was pretty rare he put up those types of numbers. But give us a lay of land on that defense. 15 sacks. That's insane to me as far as
came
but
on Sunday. Yeah.
give us the lay of the land on this defense. What we can expect. Vikings got some pretty powerful offensive weapons. What should we expect from that defense?
Well, they did have their best game of the season against the Chargers. And they tweaked some things that were really frustrating for myself in particular. I'm a big aggressive defense guy. I love Flores' defense. Knew that's not what we were going to get with this defense, but the Falcons were playing very passively, a ton of just really far off coverage, and they weren't stopping the run well. They were basically committed to just playing nickel like 80+% of the time, and it was really hurting them against the run. We did see, I think, some critical adjustments over the bye week where the Falcons committed more to changing up their formations, rotating in some different players, moving the corners just like a few yards closer. And that made all the difference in blowing up screens and stuff like that. When you're 8 yards off, you don't have a chance. When you're 5 yards off, you do have a chance. And that really helped them shut down the Chargers. And I think they were really effective at deploying some different pressures, more sim pressures, rushing their linebackers more, which they really can't cover. So you might as well just rush them at that point, right? And that helped a lot. I think they were just doing little things to help people succeed that they weren't really doing before. And that has helped the defense look better. That being said, they gave up 38 points to the Broncos the previous week before the bye and looked completely out of sorts. So this defense probably isn't as good as it was against the Chargers. Probably better than it was against the Broncos. We'll see rest of season. I think Falcons fans are sort of hoping for like a 20th-ish finish for the defense. And that's about where I'd rank them if they're having, a decent day. If they're having a good day, maybe they can play well. But, the Vikings, obviously that's going to be a tough task against an offense with so many weapons and not just a good quarterback, which is a little bit more difficult than the Chargers with, one receiver and Justin Herbert trying to get it done.
Let's talk a little bit about those 15 sacks you guys have. Are you guys getting close? Is it pressure there, or what? Are you just not hitting home? What's going on?
A little both. Definitely a lot of missed sack opportunities, but the pressure also was something they struggled, and part of that was this team has been very, very rigid with their schematic tendencies and their personnel groupings, and just not really. They've been slow to change. I think the biggest problem is that they needed a pass rusher. They decided to go for Michael Penix, and instead they traded for Matt Judon, who was coming off an upper body season-ending injury. But, he's not that old, and before that, he had a double-digit sack season. So the thought was, we can get Judon in here. He'll be our number 1 pass rusher, and Arnold McKinney's a good enough number 2 that will be okay. Matt Judon is almost unplayable. He is not, he has like 1.5 sacks. He's a liability against the run, which has never been a thing for him in his career. I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know if he just fell off a cliff, but he's basically been relegated to depth piece, and they didn't have anybody else. Their rookie third rounder tore his ACL in the preseason game. So I don't know, but Katie has been that number 2 pass rusher that you wanted, so that's nice. But they just don't have the horses, and the interior guys are a year older, and really the scheme wasn't doing much to help them either. They did change some of that last week, and we saw Grady Jarrett have 3 sacks. Amazing how that happens when you just let him shoot gaps. But it's been kind of a mix of they just don't have the horses in the pass rush, schematic issues, and just some bad luck, I would say. So hopefully last week was a sign of positive regression in the luck, but I don't know how much of that you can expect going forward. So.
Lupagus, I know when he said horses, you want to make a horse noise. Do you want?
I did. Really. I didn't say.
Here's your chance. Go ahead. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Once again, we got the Falcoholic Kevin in the house. Hit up the links down in the description. Kyle Pitts, is he officially Kyle Shits? Is he a bust? What's your take on him? You got to be getting anxious for this guy to bust out.
Yeah, I'm probably different from most Falcons fans when I think it's not really Kyle Pitts' fault. If you go back and watch the tape from last game, Kyle Pitts is open, beats his man deep for multiple touchdowns in that game. Kirk Cousins just doesn't look his way. And most of the time they just have him running clear outs for people. So Cousins doesn't target him. They've been cutting his snaps, I think, as a result. And I think obviously he's frustrated with that. It's probably obviously a little bit of, we would like you to do a little bit more as a blocker, Kyle. And also Pitt's probably being frustrated with his lack of usage, but it just doesn't seem like a good fit. And Arthur Smith never really figured it out either. I don't really think using Kyle Pitts is that complicated. We saw them do it successfully in the middle of the season where he was like second in most statistics for tight ends for a little bit there. And then they just stopped. I think it's because maybe they realized Kirk can't really throw the deep ball consistently anymore. Again, I think this is a guy like when Penix does come in, probably will live up to his ceiling because Penix loves to drop that ball as far downfield as he can, and Pitts is the perfect target for that. But, clearly not going to live up to that 4th overall pick. I think it's obvious at this point, but I still think he can be a very effective deep threat tight end, maybe the best deep threat tight end in the league, and be a very dangerous part of your offense that teams just have to account for. But for whatever reason, either the offensive coordinator isn't willing to give him that role because it's not a typical tight end role, or the quarterback is not capable of hitting him, or just doesn't get to him in the read, or just doesn't like throwing the ball to him. I don't really know which one of those it is, but it's frustrating to watch for sure.
You mentioned some problems with this team, the quarterback play, the defense, the lack of pressure there. In your opinion, what's the biggest reason for the 3-game skid you guys are on?
Well, at first it was the defense falling apart, and now it's the quarterback falling apart because the defense played great. They actually only allowed 10 points to the Chargers. 7 of those was a pick 6. And, they really fixed a lot of their issues. And honestly, another big problem with this team was discipline. They had a lot of dumb penalties, a lot of dumb mistakes that cost them. This week, last week, 2 penalties. They seem to have sort of worked on that. They worked really hard on the defense. That seemed to bear fruit. But we just saw Kirk Cousins melt down and basically completely throw away that game, which the Falcons dominated entirely. They, I think, tripled the Chargers' yardage. They had almost triple the first downs. They dominated the Chargers, and they didn't win because Kirk Cousins he could have turned the ball over 7-8 times. I mean, there were plenty of passes that were just begging to be picked off that were not. So, at this point, it's the quarterback is the problem. Even a lot of the completions he did make, guys were picking him up off the turf. Like, that's how little power were on these throws. So I really don't know what's going on with him. But again, if he looks like that again, I think it's like this. You can't run a functional offense at this point. So at this stage, it seems like Cousin is the biggest problem. We'll see how the Vikings do against the Falcons defense. It could easily go back to the defense being the problem, but it's a combination. At first it's the defense. You plug the defense problem up, and then the quarterback falls apart. So now it's a quarterback problem. It just seems like they can't come together, and they're running out of time with the Bucs now tied with them.
All right, couple real quick ones here for you. And Kirk, this is just crazy. Like the fact that Kirk coming back to Minnesota, if he actually does lay a dud, like we could be the dagger in his career in Atlanta. Like, we're Kirk guys. We love Kirk. I want to see Kirk do good. Has there been a game or like when you look at your roster and going into the season, I mean, obviously your offense just looked absolutely stacked. It looked like you guys are going to be fantastic. Has there been a time this season where it's just all come together to give you a little glimpse of what it actually could have been?
I mean, the offense has looked great in 2 games against the Bucs. They've looked very good against the Cowboys, and then they looked good against the Panthers in that first game. But those are like the 3 or 4 worst defenses in the NFL, right? So, it's hard to say that that's sustainable against a defense with a pulse. And so far, when we've had to play a defense with a pulse, it's been difficult. You take away those 2 Bucs games, and Kirk has 9 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, I believe, or even worse. He's being really propped up by a couple of fantastic games. Don't get me wrong, but season long, it's been a problem, and that's been an issue too. Is we haven't really seen the entire offense come together at any point, except the Bucs games. If only we could just play the Bucs every week, Kirk would probably win MVP.
All right, so how do your Falcons beat the Vikings on Sunday? What do they got to do differently, or how are they going to win this game?
Well, we'll have to have kind of a miraculous turnaround from Kirk Cousins. They certainly have the personnel to be able to beat the blitz. They have been able to do it successfully sometimes. They've gotten really good at sort of just having Bijan leak out of the backfield. He'll chip or whatever. And they've really started to target him as just this outlet. And that's been working really well because if he makes someone miss, he's very good at that and he can pick up some extra yardage. But they've been bad at running screens. They've kind of tried to make that their go-to short yardage play. They're not good at it. They get blown up frequently. So they really do lack a short yardage go-to. Like the offensive line has blocked well most of the time, but in short yardage, they just don't really have the power. And the Falcons are so rigid offensively in terms of they just play 11 no matter what. They never really put heavy personnel on the field or give the running game any sort of boost. So that's led to the run game being pretty inconsistent, even with Bijan Robinson. So I think they have to have a good offensive game is the short answer. Run the ball well, take some off of Cousins' plate, and then just not have Kirk Cousins throw a bunch of picks. But obviously, offensively, that's one answer. And then defensively, probably create some turnovers. That's usually the ticket for this team. And just don't let the Vikings get up big, because if the Vikings get a big lead, it's over. I don't think the Falcons are going to.
We don't get big leads.
We don't get big leads. It'll be a very close game regardless. It's what we do. It's what the Vikings do. It will be close. It will be a 1-score game if we win or lose. Final. Again, links down in the description. Check out the Falcoholic. Maybe not a score prediction, but who's winning this game on Sunday?
I do think the Vikings win this game. I think it's just a little too much for the Falcons right now. They just haven't been trustworthy against good defenses. That's my biggest hang-up here. We did see a little bit of a boost from the Falcons defense last week, but I don't know how anyone could be confident about this offense coming off that game. And that was in your home stadium, coming off a bye with 2 weeks to prepare. That's how bad Kirk Cousins looked. That's my biggest fear is like, wow, this was set up for you to have your best opportunity, and you gave us your worst game, arguably in your maybe entire career. I mean, I don't know. So I'm very nervous. And again, it would be sad for the Vikings to kind of put the dagger in Kirk's back here, obviously not intentionally, but this is setting up to be a bad game for Kirk when he really can't afford it. And the Falcons don't really have any time to waste. So if this goes down, they kind of need to win out going forward. So this would be the opportunity then to try to insert Michael Penix and hope for the best. But if they do that, probably means Kirk's time in Atlanta is mostly done. So
no, I think Kirk's gonna have a game. I think he's gonna have a a game on Sunday, man. He's gonna show up. He doesn't show up in big games, but he's gonna do it. Ooh, me?
Yeah.
I just have a feeling Kirk is gonna show up on Sunday. This is his moment, man. Coming back to his old territory. He wants to beat the Vikings. So we'll see. I hope not. Kevin, man, we appreciate you hopping on. Again, check out the links down in the description. Good luck on Sunday, man.
Yes, you guys too. Thank you.